Brother, let me have you do... Yeah, you can do Venom Pass, too. I'm fine with that. You can do Wither Shot. You do Sphere Shot. You do Wither Tackle 2. You do Wither Tackle 2. You try to get Wither Shot. And me, you... Damn, can't learn a damn thing. Yeah, like if you get a good game where you get a really good set of volleys going back and forth, it is not hard at all to get some really, really high scores, especially when you have a team that's really, really good. Like, I really don't anticipate we're going to be able to get the ball off of this Ronso. Man, it was close. So Ronsos have incredibly good endurance. That's just a thing that they have. So I really don't think we have any chance of getting the ball off of these guys. But we are going to cause some problems, and I put a lot of Wither on my team. Wither is really good at just ruining stats for people. So the hope is that, you know, I'm able to really ruin their stats. Really low shot, really low pass. Rob? Nida. Okay, Nida got the ball. Maybe just break through their freaking endurance. Hi, friend. You have no defenders. Therefore, hello. I don't really expect to see that type of score in this game, just because, again, it's going to be really tough to get the ball off the Ronso. I'm not sure why Brother isn't in this engagement. He's right there. If all three of them were in, like, this would have been a foregone conclusion. But for some reason, Brother just wasn't in that tackle engagement. How do I feel about creepypastas? I don't sleep well enough as it is. So I do not need any encouragement to not sleep. Okay, maybe Titus will actually score a goal. I've never been much of a creepy or scary person. I've never been interested. Like, as a kid, I watched an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, and actually, like, got really scared from it and had trouble sleeping for years. Haha, your pass is halved. Get in there, Rop. Steal that ball. Ooh, Wedge, you're way out of position, buddy. And Rop just takes the ball, does not care. Yeah, I've just never been that guy. There's some horror that, like, isn't horror, but... Hey, look. Wedge is in position now. Wedge. One of the biggest, like, flaws in Blitzball is that certain menus you cannot undo. So I actually want to do a, that, like, Venom Pass 2 or whatever he has. That way I can level him up faster. And I'm just not allowed to because I already clicked past it. Yeah, the thing that scared me as a kid had me having trouble sleeping in my room for, like, a decade. I don't understand why Brother is not in these engagements. There's no reason he shouldn't be in these engagements, and for some reason he's just not there. Hey, look, it's a basic Ronso. Wedge gets 2 slots, Nida gets 1. Hey, TBR Shadow. Yes, we are going for Waka's weapon. We're on, like, this is game 4 of the league to get the sigil. So we're getting there. Ooh, I wish we could do that. That would be nice. How about a nap tackle? Nap tackle's fine. Yeah, mine was, we had just recently moved into a brand new house, and there was an Are You Afraid of the Dark? That was about some girl who moved into a new house whose paint wasn't up, and she, like, found a mirror in the house or something to that effect, and looking into the mirror, she was just stolen away from the world and was never found again, and that creeped me the hell out. Yeah, Shadow, we're actually, as soon as we finish with Blitzball, we're basically going to be done. There's not really anything else I want to do in Blitzball at this point. So we're going to get Waka's Celestial Weapon, and then we are actually going to go straight to Sin. I don't think we're going to get all of Sin done today, but I'll do a significant portion of it. So that's a hard thing, because I actually haven't played a lot of Final Fantasies. So, you know, the question is, what is my favorite minigame? There's not a lot of choices. The best answer I can give you is probably Triple Triad. Like, I've played Triple Triad through Final Fantasy XIV, and I also played, Tetramaster through Final Fantasy XI. And I enjoyed both of them. I think they're very fantastic games. I prefer Tetramaster, but I've enjoyed both. But I haven't honestly played a lot of them. I don't actually remember any minigames in Final Fantasy XII. I don't remember any in 13. Tactics doesn't really have one. 14 has a bunch, but none of them that are, like, amazingly memorable. And, like, Triple Triad is the one that's on, you know, it's on 14. Like, I like, excuse me. I like Blitzball, don't get me wrong, but I've played so much Blitzball over the years that it's gotten boring to me. And so there's just not much left in this game anymore for me. think. I haven't played 15 yet, so maybe there'll be something in 15. I'll play 15 one of these days. And the only creepypasta I really enjoyed back in the day was Ben Drowned from Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I thought that was extremely well done. But I wasn't particularly creeped out by it. It really sucks to have the stat you're about to use get halved due to Wither. Unfortunately, it didn't work all that well on this guy, but, you know. I clipped out of bounds in real life. Wow. I mean, I've done some out-of-bounds clips in the past, so that doesn't really, like, bother me, but... And this is the problems with Ronso. Also, why would you do this, Bass? Why would you do this? Do you not love yourself? I think that, well, keep in mind that Ben Drowned is A, old, like really old, but also the other thing about Ben Drowned that's worth remembering is that it included video. So they either video edited, possibly, or they, like, screwed with the game. It's been a while. I read the first, like, 1,000 SCPs. See, Water Girl, the problem with stuff like that for me is that I don't believe it. You know, I have an extremely healthy suspension of disbelief, and I can fantasize a lot, but I'm going to out-reason it in my head. So when we have an issue like creepypasta saying that the world isn't real, I'm sitting there going, number one, says who, but also, how would it affect me in any meaningful way if I learned that the world was computer simulation? And at the end of the day, the answer is it wouldn't affect me at all. It is still my reality, even if it isn't true reality, and that's all there is to it. Like, that's it. That's the end of story. At least, end of story for me. And I liked SCP. There were only a couple that actually creeped me out. There's a couple that actually I thought about for years. The one with the religious one with that weird, like, little travel disc that worked on mirrors. The story for that stuck in my head for a very long time. So, like, that stuck in my head for a while. And there's a couple of them that it wasn't the story that got to me, it was the picture. And the picture essentially was like a jump scare, like the I forget which one it is, the Man in the Dark or whatever it is. There wasn't really a lot of actual SCPs that scared me. Some of them fascinated me, and I loved where the writer went with them. But that was the end result for me. Yep, the stone disc, the mirrors. So the story for that was extraordinarily well written, in my opinion, and just created a world I wanted to know more about. And yeah, Wonder Girl, like, at a certain point, like, part of it is just, you know, I've done some studying of philosophy. Not much. I'm not a philosophy major, nor am I a PhD. But I've done some study of philosophy. I've read into it. I've spent a lot of time with various games that talk about reality as a concept. I've read a lot of books that talk about the concept of reality, both fiction and non. So at a certain point, it's just like, this may or may not be true, but I can't see how it affects me. And I feel that way about a lot of things. Like, I can't see how this concept in and of itself actually has any bearing on my life. So I struggle to care a lot. And this both applies to metaphysical concepts and actual real-life concepts. The concept of, like, taxing the rich is one of those that, like, what level, like, capital gains tax should be. I can conceptually rationalize the arguments in both directions on, you know, why the tax should be higher than the common man or why the tax should be equal to the common man. But at the end of the day, I have this moment where I'm like, I'm not rich. I will probably never be rich. This doesn't really affect me. I can't bring myself to care too much. I'm sure if I thought about it, there's some issues that affect me. After the game, can I go over for my team? Sure. I'm sure there are some issues that, like, don't affect me that I actually care about, but there's also a lot of them that that don't affect me that I very much don't care about. Worth noting, Shadow, this is a very early game team. I used the reset team data strategy to force the Jupiter sigil, so my team was extremely basic before the league started. So I don't think anybody's over level 10 yet. Well, I also, you gotta understand, my background is also probably different than yours. There's a lot of things that I used to care about that I stopped caring about, and it's because I just got burned too much, There's only so much caring that any one person can provide the world, and there's only so much you caring that matters. So I am very much a person that I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. I want to, I want to improve the world around me. But I can't, from here, improve conditions in Saudi Arabia. There's so little I can do. So it's very hard for me to bring up, caring too much about stuff that's over there when I can't affect it. If, maybe on a localized level, maybe if we're talking about, we're talking about UNICEF and talking about, pay $10 this month to help some kids. Okay, I can get on that. But if we're talking about, hey, there's another warlord running around, it's like, I can't do anything about that, though. It's not, there's nothing I can do. So putting too much of that in my head is just going to make me upset or stressed. And there's no reason for me to be, so ignore it. So Shadow, so we got Titus, who's level 6. Wedge is level 8. Brother is level 9. Rop is level 9, just hit. Knight is level 3. And Miyu's level 5. Titus has Jack Shot. He hasn't been able to really use it. He keeps getting, murked every single time he tries to go for it. Wedge has Wither Shot, and he has been kicking total ass. Brother is a powerhouse in general. Rop's been doing awesome. Nida is currently low level, and it's mostly because Nida, I almost never get the ball up into her area, so she just hasn't had anything to do. And then Miyu doesn't really have anything yet. I mean, I've had... So, part of the problem, Wonder Girl, is that I had some kind of early trauma in my life with, like, my dad killing himself that affected me really badly for a very long time. Caused me to drop out of school, among other things. And I had to kind of come up with a way to get away from this depression, just the sadness that came from, you know, losing a parent. And then a lot of things happened after that. There were, you know, my family had no money. We lost our house. We had to move to a completely different state, lived in a rectory for a while because we didn't have any money to pay for a place to live. You know, there was a lot of stuff that ended up happening. A lot of things that we lost, both physical and emotional. There's a lot of things that happened. And so there's only so much of me, my attention, my feelings that can go around. And so the choice became the choice between, do I continue to spread myself thin at the cost of my emotional health, or do I just start dropping how much I care? So, you know, I try to care less about what people think of me, for example. Now, I'm not amazingly good at it. I do have some very specific weak points that unfortunately come up commonly. But there's some, like, specific weak points that I have, but I try not to care about what people think of me, because that is just another one of those, like, stress points that I just don't need. You know, I don't need that negativity in my life. So, thankfully, my YouTube channel, my gaming, stuff like that, are not pain points for me. So, someone can go into my comments and start being as negative as they want to be, and I'm not likely to care. I'm not going to bat an eyelash. Now, I got criticized yesterday, and this person was just, they were teasing more than anything, but they were teasing me about how I like to be right about things. And it's not in a, like, not in a, like, man, I need to be right, but more of a, like, I try to research some stuff, try to get some information, and I also try, if we're gonna have a conversation about something, I try to reason out as much as I can and give valid arguments for what I have to say and things like that. And so when he kind of mentioned that, man, you always need to be right, don't you? And again, he was teasing. He wasn't trying to be mean about it. But that is one of my pain points. Like, that gets to me, because it is one of those, like, well, I did spend some time trying to learn this, and then, you know, I'm also doing my best to accept when I'm wrong, to see your viewpoint, but I do want my viewpoint to be known. So it's stuff like that. So I do have weak spots, but I try to ignore the ones that I just don't need to have. And Wonder Girl, there's nothing to help with. My dad died like 16 years ago. So, you know, we lost our house 10 years ago. I am a extraordinarily different person now than I was then. So it's one of those, like, that was a thing back then, and now it very much isn't. I have family members who are not really over it. Well, over it's the wrong word. Past it's the right word. I have family members who aren't past it. But I can both accept that, hey, there's grief on not having a father figure, and it's going to hurt really hard sometimes. And, you know, I have 3 sisters who, if their lives go the right way and if it's something they want, I have 3 sisters who will probably get married, and none of them will have a father to walk them down the aisle. And I don't know if I'm close enough to them to be the one who does walk them down the aisle. So there, you know, there's stuff like that. So there are things that affect me about it, but the fact that it happened itself is not one of them. But just, it's one of those things. I kind of reached a point where I just refuse to give the energy to caring about some of this stuff because it's not worth it to me. Hey, Tia's finally got a second shot. Shadow, to go back to your question, there may be another goalie in Luca who's available. Miyu has always worked for me. She's got fairly good stats, and she also has fairly good abilities. You can get her extremely early on, and she's easy to find. So she just works out. If I actually was going to continue playing, like, if I was going to continue playing Blitzball past, let's see, volley shot there. If I was going to continue playing Blitzball past Waka's legendary weapon, I might actually start caring a little bit about, like, getting Nimrook. But apart from that, by the point where I'm at in the game with how people are leveling up things like that, almost no shot ever gets past Miyu. Do I not plan on getting married? I got no idea. I have to have the prerequisite to getting married before I get married. Once I have a, you know, significant other that I'm spending time with and we've been together long enough, I'll start looking into it. But I also... I don't know. I am... Having talked to a bunch of people who are in very different... You know, well, not very... A variety of different states in their lives. People that have different styles of relationships. You know, kind of things like that. I've seen a lot of people who have no need of marriage. It's not a thing that they actually... that is important to them in their lives. And most of the marriages I have seen in my life have not worked out. So it's not something that holds this huge importance in my life. There's Miyu being a badass. Hey, and brother gets the ball. I mean, I very well might be. The problem is I might be best alone, but I am going to be extraordinarily lonely, and that's kind of the problem. The way my life is now, the way it's set up between me, you know, working from home and stuff like that, you know, I don't have any real reason to leave the house unless I want to leave the house, but I definitely get that feeling of, hey, I need to leave the house. I need to go be with people. I need to go do things. But so far, of any of the very limited relationships I've been in, none of them have ever gone very well, and I believe it's usually me that's the problem, from what I can tell. So it's just kind of one of those, like... If this isn't going to last to begin with, I don't want to tie someone to me and have them be miserable and feel that they, you know, they have to do something that they shouldn't have to do. But as I said, we'll find out when we get there if there's someone who, you know, can put up with me that long. Well, there's lonely and there's lonely. Some people just want to be with others. Some people need someone to be with them, you know, all their lives. And those are two very different types of people, you know? God damn it, Nimrook. I need to get Wedge in here, because Wedge can actually score on Nimrook. Okay, Wedge, can you actually, like, score on this bastard for me? Probably not given the blockers, but we'll find out. Nope. That was a remarkably good block. That was like a max block. I mean, it's probably not all me. I'd be extremely conceited to think that I am the sole problem in a relationship. One day, we'll actually get another goal on this asshole. See, I don't think it's all me, but kind of looking back and kind of thinking, okay, how did this go? How did these things happen? Where did the kind of downward spiral start? You know, I can't help but go, okay, well, you know, why does Aegir have super goalie? Why does Nimruk have wither tackle? Like, I can't learn super goalie off of Aegir. Ridiculous. The wrong players have the wrong abilities. There's also, like, this significant difference between seeing someone, you know, at a long range through a screen, who kind of has the ability to control whatever they want to say, and then also seeing that same person in person and spending lots and lots of time with them. Really? Come on. Tidus is just getting murked every time. Like, they are getting these huge defensive rolls every single time against him. It's getting kind of comical, actually. Okay, we're gonna give Tidus an actual shot at this. We're gonna go grab all the defenders. Come here, you. Okay, cool. Tidus, you want to actually, like, get in position so I can actually, like, give you the ball and you can actually do this? I remember a comment, where did you come from? You were back there. How did you actually get close enough to get into this engagement? There was a comment I remember in my, at my local gaming store. I was playing Magic against someone, and, I forget exactly what it was. But I said a curse word. I don't know which one. I don't keep track. But some curse word left my lips. And I remember that the person I was playing, who has known me for several months at this point, said, "Wow." I said, "What?" He says, "I don't think I've ever cursed or heard you curse before." And I went, "You're joking." And he goes, "No." And I said, "Well, I mean, I don't try to make a habit of it, but it's also not something that I ever try to stop myself from doing unless there's kids around." But there was this, like, very much feeling from him that apparently he thought I just don't curse. And it was a very kind of like, oh, okay, that's a little bit surreal. But, like, in general, on my channel, I try not to. But in the right company, I will, you know, I'm not going to say curse like a sailor, because that's actually a very specific statement. But I end up cursing a lot in very specific company that is comfortable with that. So it's just one of those things. Like, you just have to... Basing, you know, what you know of someone off of, like, the single facet of their personality that you see in a single setting. And that's usually what I end up seeing with a lot of the people who, you know, who I get to know. They know me specifically from one thing or the other. And I'm one of those people who not necessarily my personality, but the, you know, the face I put on is a little bit different depending on the company and depending on the situation. I've had, you know, friends who I will make jokes with them that I would never under any circumstances say in any other situation. Because I know that these friends will enjoy the joke, they'll laugh at it, and we'll move on. Because I also know that they will also make those jokes, laugh at it, and move on. We have established exactly what type of jokes are acceptable in this group. I also have other groups that I would not dream of making some of these jokes because I'd be concerned about how it would be taken by some of these people. So it's just kind of different stuff like that. I mean, as an example of that, because those statements can be taken in entirely the wrong way, and I really don't want them to be. So, like, as an example of that type of situation, I've got 2 D&D groups that I'm in. They're made of 90% of the same people, but one D&D group is made of a slightly different group than the other ones. And then I also have the third group, again, 90% made of the same people, but I'm the DM in the third one. In the first one, would never dream of making a sexually oriented joke. I just wouldn't do it. Because I don't feel like some of the people, including the DM, would appreciate that type of joke. So I won't make them. In the second group, where the major difference is that DM, I play a bard whose entire thing is that he comes off as a walking penis. And I'm playing him like that on purpose. He has an actual backstory. There is an actual reason why he's doing it. But I thought I was going to play up that type of bard and have some fun with it. And so we've been making tons of jokes. 90% the same people. I am more comfortable doing it with this group than the other group, even though there's only about 2 people that are different. And then, for the third group, I regularly, I am known as the sassy DM because I, on the regular, make fun of my players. Like, I will constantly tease them, I'm making fun of them, or making fun of their roles, taking their shit out of context. Like, it is a constant thing in that third game. And the players enjoy it, and they're having fun with it, and they're, you know, that's actually the reason they wanted me to play a bard, because they wanted to see what I would do with a bard, and not the straight-laced characters I've been playing. And I'll do it in that game, but I wouldn't do it in like, another one. So depending on which group you saw me in, you might see a very different sense of humor. And when I'm in person, some of those jokes will never come up. So it's just kind of one of those things. I don't know if more other people do that, or if that's just a me thing. I kind of hope other people do that. I would hate to be the only person who tends to do that. God damn it, Wedge. God, is this game 6? I think this is game 6. really hope this is game 6. I would love it if any of my opponents, like any of the other teams, actually had the ability to score on me. Because if they scored on me, I'd actually be able to, like, forfeit and speed things up. But none of them have even the slightest ability to kick the ball. Somehow the ball gets behind him. We're not going to ask how that happens. He does the magical teleporting ball trick. Okay, well, Wedge, you're going to float around for a bit. Whoops. Oh, it would have been very, very nice to not have actually pressed that button. Because I actually can't pass this guy unless this guy misses his block. Nope. I mean, there's social cues, there's not social cues. Like, it's... We're talking about a group that is about 90% similar. So it's like one person that is making it. So I'm like, I don't want to tell that joke. And I can't help but feel like intellectually that if it's one person, that one person should not change the entire dynamic of the group. They should bend for the group. Now, if you... on the other side, if it's the entire rest of the group that would be uncomfortable with the joke or wouldn't appreciate it, then yes, you should not tell the joke. But, you know, there's a certain level of like, So intellectually, I feel that way. Emotionally, and like in the way I actually behave, if there's even one person who would not feel comfortable with the joke, usually I will not even let it fly. Even if every single other person would appreciate it and laugh. Like, it kind of feels, especially lately, that you kind of have to walk on eggshells like that. Otherwise, bad things tend to happen. I try to be. It's one of the things I got taught growing up. Like, the thing that makes me laugh is that the primary reason I will generally hold back a joke is, like, the whole... We're making fun of this character, and that's absolutely fine. The character, I am... like, happy to make fun of him because he's not intended to be serious. He's, as I said, I'm playing him as if he's a walking penis. Like, every time he can make, you know, a joke he does, he also is huge into wordplay, so I try everything I can to twist words, rhyme, whatever wordplay I can pull off. And then the concept is, you know, he never sleeps alone and stuff like that. So... I was initially nervous to play this character, even though I knew the group would be cool with it. I was initially nervous to play this character, and it's going to sound stupid, but one of the people, the DM, is a girl I've played before, and this stuff has never come up with her before. So I was like, I don't know how she's going to take it, especially because he might come off initially as misogynistic, which is the entire anti-point to his character. The entire point is that this character is not picky. He's, like, the running joke now is that he's pretty much into everybody. But I was kind of worried how she would take it and where she would take it. Well, no, she's making more jokes than I am half the time. Like, she understands exactly what I'm trying to play, and she's running with it. But I was initially nervous that she wouldn't appreciate it, and then it would be like, okay, I have to really tone this back. But now she's encouraging us to go even further with some of these jokes. One of my favorites that she did, actually, was I wasn't even involved in the interaction. The thief opened a door with a natural 20. And the DM's response was, that door opened faster than the legs of women around the bard. And all of us were howling. Like, it was just... This was the first time the DM had joined in on these jokes. It was hysterical. Like, we weren't aware that she was going to start doing this. And so now she's helping to build this. So now she's introduced 2 additional characters. 2 sisters who are healers that we go to. One sister is really into my character. The other sister hates my character. And so we're having this... So it's a lot of fun being able to play off of this because she's allowing me to play this character. But I think part of it is that also she and I had a conversation after the first session where I was like, look, if we're going to make this... She knows the type of characters I play. I play very character-oriented characters. I try to put in personality, backstory, motivation, and I try to play very different characters, or at least as different as I can. So she's aware I'm going to play differently. And I went to her after the first session, and I was like, look, he's really one-dimensional, and I'm not really happy with him being one-dimensional, so if you're going to continue this story, I may have to work with you to make sure he has a backstory that works. Otherwise, like, these jokes are going to be funny, but with no reason, I can't keep doing it. So we built a backstory, so I think it might be part of why it works. But she's having fun with it, and I am too. But if she, like, I was nervous about it to begin with, so I'm like, you know, most of the times when I have done these sorts of games with women, those jokes didn't fly very well. So I was like, crap. Either I can do this or I cannot do it. Am I going to risk it? And I risked it, and it turned out, yes, everybody appreciated we moved on. But that's the type of thing, like, I'm like, ugh. Don't know if we can pull this off. I am one of those people who I am generally shocked when I see, like, other people with, like, talking about, like, not shocked, like, almost prudish. Like, I get kind of like, wow, you're talking about sex? I never thought you would even talk about this. Like, you always come across so, you know, I don't want to say straight-laced, it's the really wrong word, but it's like, man, I've never seen this side of you. So it always, like, again, it kind of shocks me whenever I see it. So starting to see stuff like this, bad parenting absolutely makes characters. Like, there is no doubt about it. Bad parenting makes characters. It might not be good results, but your character will have, like, character development based on bad parenting. In fact, one of the reasons that Id is the way he is partially based on some bad parenting. But it's one of those, like, you have to kind of think about it and go, okay, what can you get out of bad parenting? What does your character learn from that? Am I actually... No, I'm not going to get this goal. Yep, this took too long. I mean, you gotta... It depends on the character and the character's, like, interactions with others and how they, you know, how they do things. But if you go look at, you know... If you go look at a character who is, like, has an abusive backstory, right? Like, there was, you know, a lot of drinking in their family and a lot of, Look, to quote a book that I really like, I believe that there should be a test to see if you should be a parent apart from the physical. Most parents are not trying to be bad parents, and the problem is there is no book, or, well, okay, let me rephrase that. There is no set of instructions for being a good parent. There is no absolute right way to be a good parent, and some bad results come from people attempting to be good parents. So there is actual situations where bad parents, maybe not excusable, but one of those things that they should be maybe judged a little bit less harshly than others. But it is one of those things. Like, if you bring someone into the world, sure, they're your responsibility. But there is only so much you can do. And to I forget, where did I read this? I was reading this recently. But someone was bringing up, on the subject of parents, remember that the parent is only one of the social factors of the child. In today's day and age, like, the child has so many influences from so many places. I agree with you, but I almost want to argue. Like, I always look for intent, and I always, like, and I'm not arguing abuse. Neglect is the one that I almost want to argue. I look at intent. You can have a parent who is a single parent who is working 2 or 3 jobs and ends up neglecting their child. I cannot blame that parent. Like, I really can't. If you're doing everything you can to be a good parent and something like that happens, the only thing I can blame you for is not getting help sooner. But what parent wants to give up their child or say, I cannot take care of this child? Well, there are parents who will. But good parents don't want, or well, most parents don't want that. The good parent is the one who will say that who will give up the child. But to ask someone to do that is really, really hard. Most people are going to try before they reach that point. Abuse, I absolutely agree with you of. But I think we're learning in a big way over the past decade. Okay, deliberate neglect, sure. I can agree with that. I can agree with deliberate neglect. But I think we're also learning a lot in this day and age that some things, you know, are potentially abusive, even though they didn't seem like they were once upon a time. And there's some things that you know, some people will go, this is abusive, I'm going to go, you're being too sensitive. But, you know, there are some things, like, you know, a phrase that I've heard brought up a couple times recently, and, it is a thing. Boys will be boys. That is a, you know, phrase that's really prevalent in culture. I'm going to say at least American culture, I don't know elsewhere. It's kind of a prevalent phrase in American culture, but that's, you know, that's kind of an abusive statement. It's not intended to be, but it is. Because you're making clear to this person that your complaint is not valid. And I'm going to pass it off with this hand wave. You know, there is kind of stuff like that. I do also believe there is a certain amount of tough love that is required. But there seems to be this fine line that some people have trouble with, and I don't think there is a lot of agreement on some of this stuff. Like, one example that I can think of is, is spanking. Which I know a lot of parents who think that spanking is a good thing and teaches lessons to children about, you know, there are significant consequences to your actions. Consequences that you will not like. and that you should take actions to not have. I know a lot of parents who say that that is abuse, that you are striking your child, and it is never okay. And as far as I'm aware, the jury's still out on that one. The problem is I'm not a psychologist, and I haven't looked too deeply into it. It's just an example I'm coming up with. But that's one of those things. It's like, okay, now taking a belt to someone is a very different statement entirely. So it's kind of one of those, like, context is very important, and then, again, you can't black and white a lot of stuff. So then, okay, then we ask, okay, is spanking your child deliberate abuse? And that's where I'd want, like, a psychologist to come in and actually answer that question, because I'm actually kind of curious what they say. But that is one of those things. Like, I know very different answers were given when I grew up. My parents didn't do it, but I do know a lot of parents that did. I know there's a lot of actions, like, you know, I forget what's the example? I'm trying to think of it. There are, you know, actions that you can take, I don't remember which one it is, that teaches your kid to lie. And it's not, you know, it's not something you're trying to do, but you're teaching them to do it. We may come to a point where learning that forbidding children from doing something is a bad idea. Because you're making it forbidden fruit, they're more likely to want to do it. Yeah, you're very right. It is very much individual case. But if we're saying that abuse is bad, then we have to define it. Like, that's the big problem. If we're going to say carte blanche that something is a bad thing, okay, then we need to be very sure what that bad thing is. But to go back to the original topic, a character is very easily defined by bad parents. And you'll get different results. When you have parents who are abusive and drunk and things like that, you tend to get people and characters. And I remember, I forget what, again, this was an article that I was reading, and a psychologist was watching some anime, and they were seeing this girl who was very, very shy and nervous. And the psychologist went, wow, that character must have been abused, right? And, you know, what they were told is, look, it's an anime, try not to read too deeply into it. This is an archetype of characters in this. But, you know, you now have a character who is very shy, doesn't want to talk a lot, has a lot of problems in public, things like that. It's not a comfortable character. That is a good character. Well, I'm sure most of us do. Most of us hate that bad parenting happens. But there's, you know, it's kind of a fact of life, and until we can somehow fix it, it's one of those things like, okay, let's fight it, but we're going to have to deal with it. Do what you can to stop it, but don't beat yourself up over the fact that it's there. Parenting does shape a person, but again, you got to remember, the parent is one of dozens of people, hundreds of people that shapes that child. One article I was reading, it was actually an article about gendered toys. It was kind of an interesting article. It was about what toys are actually, like, we're showing at a toy trade show this year. And they were just talking about, like, what was there. So one parent was like, yeah, I originally banned guns in my household. But then I later realized that all of the kids around my household, all of their friends, had toy guns. So there was no point in me banning them because I just made it something that they really wanted to get from elsewhere. So instead, they're welcome here, but we teach about how they should be used, and we also kind of regularly talk about them. You know, they were talking about, like, if you play guns, then maybe the parent should step in every once in a while and play as as a peacekeeper or something like that to kind of show, you know, this is what happens. But though the kids in her case are being affected by other kids and other parents. And depending on where you are, remember also, if you're the normal everyday parent and your child is going to school, the teacher sees your kid more than you do. So the teacher is an amazingly large part of what happens to your child. So I think there's, you know, I would say that a parent is maybe marginally more, like marginally more impressive on a child than everybody else, but not by much. Maybe a parent is half again as important to the child as every other person. And yeah, your parent tells you you can't have a thing, now you want it because you want to know why you can't have it. I mean, I won't usually point to, like, the Bible on stuff like this, but that's one of those lessons that comes straight out of the Bible that is pretty darn accurate. So just kind of one of those things. So the idea for my character, because I know that none of the players that I play with are in here. The idea behind my character is that he's a tiefling, if you're familiar with the race. And his mom left after having him and his little sister. And so his dad raised them, but dad died early, you know, probably when my character was like 12 or something. So my character raised his little sister, and the idea is that the best way for him to gain money for her was prostitution. And he's embarrassed like hell because of it. So his way to do it is to play off all of his bed partners as just that, people he has seduced. When the reality is he's getting paid for a lot of them, and most of the money goes back to take care of his sister's education and housing and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forwards to when the other characters realize, because all they see him as a person who walks and talks sex, who is convinced he's God's gift to everybody, that he is amazingly handsome and witty and charming. And so I'm actually looking forwards to when they see the truth, because I want to see how they're going to respond to that. And so part of it is bad parenting. You know, the idea that mom left and dad died, so he had to step up and be the parent, and had to kind of model himself after the only parent he saw. It's bad parenting, but it makes for an interesting character. I was going to do dad left, but it's a little bit too stereotypical. I'm actually still trying to decide if the character enjoys sex at all, if he's even interested. And I haven't decided yet. But it's one of those fun things. So I will end up like playing him, hitting on everything that moves, and then the idea is that, you know, when it gets down to it, either he had someone lined up to begin with, or he's spreading the word and trying to kind of develop that for himself. It's not an amazingly good backstory, but I was having trouble finding reasons that he would want to compensate as hard as he does. And there's certainly reasons for compensation. Like, everybody knows jokes and stuff that we can say about about people that compensate for something. But I wouldn't feel good just going, yeah, my character constantly hits on everything because he has a small penis and he's compensating for it. That seems boring to me. I didn't like the concept, and it didn't really lead anywhere for the character. And so it ended up being like, okay, where can we go? And the fact that he's a bard, so he's very big on charming people and things like that, started naturally kind of leading to, okay, what could he do that would have led him to that sort of thing. So that's one of those things. Like, I feel that you can make good characters out of just about everything. And in this case, it was a little bit easier because I was working backwards from a personality that I wanted to play with. But you can build stuff up. Ooh, hey. Someone actually learned Anti-Wither? Well, the problem is there's forced and there's forced. So I mean, the question that has to be asked is he... So when we say forced, is he raped? Absolutely not. Like, he goes into this willingly. So the question is then, and because of that, because I'm not playing him as a rape character, we can kind of pass up on that type of psychology. We don't have to go into the, you know, and again, I'm playing a character and I'm going armchair psychologist to justify the character I'm playing. But we don't have to go like he feels dirty or afraid of it or, you know, is disgusted by that. We don't have to do that because that's not the situation he's in. He goes into this willingly and has since he was however old he was when he started. We haven't decided. So we don't have to say it. So it's not a question of does he hate it. The question is does he enjoy it? And that's kind of a different question. So part of me wants to go that he's not interested because it's, you know, if you're a kid who grows up in a military family, you might not see the mystique in guns and stuff like that that someone else does when they only see it in Call of Duty. So, you know, the question is, does he enjoy it? Is he interested? Or is it something he's like, you know, it doesn't mean anything or it's not interesting with the marks, but I do want to find people. And then also, you know, he doesn't really have to go into the concept of, you know, meaningful relationship. Maybe he just flat does enjoy casual sex. Who knows? I'm looking forward to developing that character because I'm a very weird person when I write characters or settings or stories. I usually develop it as I go and kind of see what I come up with, and I usually develop it with these very like quick comments. So I try to develop the backstory with these little remarks and little comments and things like that, and then if they fly with people, if people react to them, and if people seem to like those remarks, then I build the actual story based on that remark. And it seems like some I mean, I play with a bunch of people that do too. See, that's the thing. There's forced and there's forced. So I was kind of forced to take the job I have due to circumstances. I was not able to find anything else. There was nothing else that was hiring. No one else was interested in me. I didn't have a choice. I don't resent the job. I find it fairly enjoyable. And while it's not something I really intend to be, you know, necessarily permanent, I don't currently have any reason to leave, and I don't feel upset about it. So it's, I mean, a job is different than, you know, sex, obviously. But it is one of those things. It's like, there is forced and there is forced. And I don't like the idea of us talking about him, you know, prostituting himself once, getting a pimp who then forces him to do things. I like more the idea that word of mouth says this guy is decent in bed for a small amount of money, and he kind of spreads the word and lets towns, or, you know, lets bars know when he's going to be in town so they can start getting stuff. I like the idea more of that because it leads to less of the extremely familiar and extremely, you know, almost overdone in literature concept of, I was forced into it, now I hate it. Because as a role-playing character, as a D&D character, that suddenly makes a lot of things really hard to pull off, and especially on a bard. Bards are known for seducing people. So if he's not on the job, let's say, if he's not working, right, why would he want to seduce someone in the campaign? If he doesn't actually enjoy it, you know? So it's kind of one of those, like, I need to set up the backstory to create the personality I want, because I really don't like one of my pet peeves in storytelling is personalities that don't fit their backstory, but also I hate grimdark, super sad backstories that are there for no reason and are only there for, like, shock value. They don't have an appeal for me. I was actually trying to look up one that had one of those, and I was having trouble actually finding one. You know, most of the ones I actually looked up are from stories that I actually respect, and therefore, like, I don't have this. But some stories are like, yeah, this character's... And it happens a lot in, like, role-playing games. Yeah, this character's parents died. They were murdered when he was a young kid. But he's fairly happy-go-lucky, and that will never impact anything in the story. It's like, okay, cool. You just want him to have a sad backstory. I was trying to avoid doing that. But again, I was having trouble figuring out, okay, so why do you have a character who compensates as hard as he obviously is? And so the question is, either he is as good as he says he is, which feels boring to me as a player and, you know, as a person who enjoys literature. That feels boring, to have him be literally as good as he says he is. If he does snap his fingers and women's panties fly off from 50 yards away, that's boring. I can do better than that. And so, you know, that's where we get to where he is now. And I feel like it introduced a lot of cool concepts. We had an amazing interaction. The character's name, so tieflings, one of the things that they do is that they will take upon a name that either speaks to them or it's a thing they want to become. So when I decided that I was going to play a bard who was a tiefling, but also is trying to be like the super stereotypical I lay everything that moves bard, I chose that his name was going to be Id. ID. And there's backstory and psychology to that, but ignoring that. We had this amazing interaction. He was interacting with those two girls, you know, the two sisters. One likes him a lot, one really doesn't. So the one that doesn't looks at me and goes, and then looks at my allies and go, "Why did you bring it with you?" And my immediate response was, hey, my name is Id with a D. Well, now that's going to be a running joke. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think the DM was intending that joke to happen, but it did. And so now we've established more backstory for the characters. Now we know that she doesn't like me so much, she's messing with my name and punning off of my name. Which feels really cool. And I love doing stuff like that. But I feel that with a lot of other potential backstories, a lot of other potential reasons for how he acts, we may not have been able to pull that off. I have friends all over the gender spectrum, sexuality spectrum, kind of all over the place. And I know a few people who are flat not interested. So we have talked, we've had conversations, you know, we've gone into it. So I understand the concept. Like, on an intellectual level. Well, we'll see. We'll see what he gets to do. The big problem that I'm worried about, and we're going to have to see how it goes. The big problem that I'm worried about is, where do I take him? what character growth opportunity is available for this character. That's... I play games like D&D to develop stories and, you know, grow characters and kind of make a, you know, make a storyline happen. So I really don't want a character who has no room to grow. I chafe at that idea. I actually, like, I replaced a character recently because he didn't feel like he had any room to grow. And now that he is no longer a main character, he's a side character that I occasionally play when the situation calls for it, he now has room to grow. And I replaced him because I'm sitting here going, okay, he's way too one-dimensional. I have nothing I can do with this character. I can't... Like, the original idea was interesting, but based on the party makeup, how people interact, I can't do anything with him more than I am doing now. And that kind of sucked. And I was like, okay, well, you know, this is him. And now that he's in a really different situation, he is actually growing as a character. You know, he's gradually developing another side to his personality, very slowly. But now it's like, okay, I like him more. And it came to a point where, like, the other players, when they learned how my second character worked, went, oh my god, he is so different. The original character is like a druid who is very kind of feral. He's extremely antisocial. Just does not like people in general. And, he's with the party originally out of a sense of obligation, and now he's with the party because he has come to think of them kind of as his pack. And the problem is most of the party is going along with the idea, even though they don't outright say it. They kind of he became kind of the leader of the pack. But he generally insults people. He's very gruff. He's not kind in general. He mostly just wants to be left alone. And so the problem is, it didn't leave him anywhere to go. Like, he would rather hit you than look at you most of the time to get you to just go away. So the problem is, this leaves me with a character who doesn't really have much I can do with him. What ended up happening is eventually he ended up, out of, again, kind of a sense of obligation, ended up adopting this young girl because her dad completely abandoned her. And it has come to, but the problem is she's like 12 or 13, so she's a little bit too old to make that attachment as quickly as would be necessary. So it's slowly softening him up because he is trying to be father figure to her and build a home for her and protect her from the crap that's going on around her. And now that he's no longer the main character, now he no longer has to be like the fighter, he is able to focus a lot more on just developing, you know, he's a druid, he's developing a guard in the middle of a city, he's, you know, developing this kind of green space, and he can be a lot more relaxed because of it. So it's changing his character. My other character is a paladin, and because he's that paladin, I decided I wanted to play a, you know, a good paladin who is trying to, you know, help everybody. The other thing is, he's also an old paladin, and he got old by being extremely cautious and extremely careful. So I'm also playing him as a kind of person who's very, very careful, does not want to put himself unnecessarily into danger. Like, the reward of putting himself into danger has to outweigh the risk of dying. So he better be saving like 6 or 7 people if there's a risk that he's going to die from whatever stupidity he's about to do. And we had a situation where he does not want to be the leader of the party. He's letting someone else be that person. And so he knows what it's like to be the leader. So this, you know, he was like, you know, patting this person on the shoulder, saying, hey, let me give you some advice. And so the party was kind of flabbergasted, like, wow. I'm like, what? And like, that's very different. I'm like, yeah, they're different characters. Like, what we know, but if the other guy said that, that would have been, he would have been snide, and he would have been insulting. I'm like, yes, I know, this is a different character. But it kind of became that, where he has become this extraordinarily, why would you make this pass? Yeah, it's kind of this extraordinarily different character. We had a situation where the paladin has met a half-demon. He's good. The demon's evil. But he's convinced the demon can repent his evil ways and become better. And the demon saved the life of a young girl for various reasons. So the next time my paladin saw him, he smiled, pat him on the shoulder, and said, "See, I knew you can be good. Apparently you just have a thing for young girls." And I knew what I was doing. Keep in mind, I knew what I was saying. But, my part... How did you miss that, brother? But my party was laughing, and they're like, "Oh my god, I cannot believe... We know he's sincere, and that makes it even funnier." So it's kind of like that. It's been fun to play different characters. And that's what I really enjoy about doing this, is that I have 3 different characters who are extraordinarily different from each other. But if I can't get that story, and if I can't build that character, I kind of don't want to play the character. So I have to figure out what to do with id in order to make him an actual 3-dimensional character. He was 1-dimensional. Now he's kind of 2-dimensional. I need to find more of an organic backstory with him. I'll get there eventually. I think like on Sunday, I'm going to take a break and just start writing. And actually write something up for him that actually talks about where he came from, what he is. I'm just not a person... I hate writing, like, in a pointed fashion. It just drives me nuts. Damn it! No one has Super Goalie anymore. I wanted Miyu to learn Super Goalie. Good news is, this is the very last Blitzball game we have to play. We are done. I'm trying to decide how much energy I have to actually go into the storyline, or... yeah, I don't really enjoy writing with a goal as much. I like to kind of, like, write and see where it takes me. I usually, whenever I'm writing, I don't usually plan. I just kind of go, this is my starting point, and let's just see where it goes, and see what stories I can tie in. So my party, like, sometimes what I'll sometimes do is I'll just say, okay, this is my starting point, let's see where it goes. And sometimes I'll go, this is my start point, that is my end point, and now let's fill in the between points. But I don't want to plan it, I don't want to sketch it out, I just want to do it and just go and see what happens. The game that I am the DM for is like that. We had a start point. There is an end point. I know what the end point is. I know how the campaign will end. I even know how the next... Whoops. Didn't want to do that. I even know how the next campaign will start. But how did... Brother, what did you... So I know how the story's going to end, so I'm just making shit up as we go along, and my players are aware of this. I don't plan any campaign session for the most part. The most planning I did is I planned 3 puzzles for my players, and that was it. I didn't plan any more than that. But I don't usually plan much. I usually play my campaign like I play my characters. I'll say something and give them a story concept, and then if the players respond to that, if I see like a big response to the thing that I said, I'll build on it. An example of this, I had some characters, they were on a boat recently, and they were not passengers, they were working on the boat. 2 of them were lookouts. No, 3, 2 of them were lookouts, and one was the cleric, the priest, healing people. And so I was talking about they were on a riverboat, and the riverboat was just going upriver. And I was talking about how the sailors were starting to get nervous, and the reason why I couldn't figure out a good thing I wanted them to do on the boat. I was trying to avoid the stereotypical pirate adventure. So I just said that the sailors were getting nervous, and they were specifically looking on the port side of the boat. And kind of implied that a town they were passing was a known den of thieves and pirates, and that we were just passing it, and they were just trying to make sure they didn't get jumped. And the idea was they weren't going to get jumped. It was just everybody was going to be very tense. But one of the players was on the starboard side of the boat, and he was trying to look for, and he was looking. And so I told him, you start seeing lights in the distance, very regularly spaced. And the original idea is these lights were supposed to be bonfires or campfires of the thieves who were maybe planning on jumping the boat. But he decides to go ask about it. So he asks a nearby sailor, and the sailor, intending to just make fun of him for ignorance, told him that these were fairy lights or fey lights. And that got a huge reaction from my players. My players were like, oh god, it's fairy lights? Oh god, why are there fairy lights here of all places? Because apparently there's a connotation for fairy lights in D&D that I was unaware of. So I just had to build on that. So all of a sudden, you know, as the night grows darker, the sailors started telling all the passengers they had to go to bed early, and they put out all the lights, and there was a fog coming in, and the lookouts were warned that they should only be worried if the lights started getting bigger. And then, of course, the lights started getting bigger. And so then I built this very Stephen King-like... I based half the idea on the movie, the movie, The Langoliers. But I kind of built this very kind of Stephen King-like, very horror-like storyline where they wake up from going to sleep and it's dark, they can't see anything, all the sailors are missing, they can't hear any people. It's just the boat, which is still going upriver on its own. The fog is too thick to see when they get outside, but they can see it's lit by a moon or something. They can see the fairy lights, like as lights in the fog, and out of the corner of their eye, they're constantly seeing dark figures. And I was just making shit up as I went along. But apparently, as I did it, I creeped out my players. And eventually it came to a point where they, you know, they presumably almost died to some shadow people. And then they open a door, and all of a sudden, oh, hey, the entire sequence is over, it's morning again, and you're being yelled at for sleeping on the job. And then it's like, oh, okay, so, you know, they're like, okay, so did it not matter? Was this a dream sequence? And at the very end of the series, it was, oh, by the way, the book you found in the fog, yeah, it's on his back. So now the question is going to be, okay, was that real or was that not? What was real out of that? And it actually fits in with the overall storyline I've been trying to tell the players. And I like doing that. And the entire thing was based on the fact that some of the players reacted strongly to the concept of fairy lights. Also, by the way, we're done with Blitzball. Okay, so we're gonna go to Lake Lake Macalania.
Here we go.
But I like doing that. I like a casual offhand comment be a thing that develops a story. Because I feel like, you know, not all stories should be based on the extremely obvious thing. And players, very frequently in games, will latch onto the smallest detail. So actually having small details that matter feels awesome. Okay, it's time to actually create our legendary weapons. So we have to go talk to this plant. And once we have both the sigil and the crest, we can offer forward the weapon, and the weapon will be upgraded. So the first time you upgrade the weapons on their own, when you have the weapon for the first time, and there's no... can I show this off real quick? So, we have Waka's weapon. Where's Waka? Waka's weapon is the World Champion. So you'll see that its ability is no AP, which means that when he uses World Champion right now, he can't level up. He doesn't gain any experience. Put one thing into the weapon, and now it's no AP, but double overdrive. No, this is not the far plane. This is the ceiling of the Macalania Woods. When you put the second item into the weapon, so we'll go ahead and complete the Khalid Bolg. So the weapon attains maximum power. So now I have the Khalid Bolg, which is Tidus' celestial weapon, and it has break damage limit, triple overdrive, so he grows overdrive 3 times as fast as normal, evade and counter, which means he dodges all regular attacks and then counterattacks, and magic counter. If an opponent casts magic at him, he casts magic back automatically. Okay, now let's go do all the other ones. I already did Tidus's. Let's go do Yuna's. So there's the Nirvana. So, doing the ultimate weapons does 2 things simultaneously. It both gives me the ability to do even more damage, which is important, but also, the weapon also allows, several of the weapons are tied to Aeons, and also give Aeons their break damage limit. So I'm making my Aeons more powerful as well. And then some of the weapons have pretty useful effects, so Tidus is, letting him dodge a lot of shit. Let him counter all of the shit that gets fired at him. I think Yuna's comes with 1 MP, which means that all of her spells only cost 1 MP. I forget some of the other ones. They all also have a passive effect. So most of them are, like, the more HP you have, the more damage you deal. Orin's is actually the only one that's different. The less HP he has, the more damage he deals. Riku has a very important legendary weapon. Hers has the ability Gillionaire. If she hits an enemy, if she takes an active part of the battle, which generally in this case means hits an enemy, you gain, I think it's either 2 or 4 times the amount of money you would have gained otherwise. I think it's 2 times. Riku's legendary weapon is going to be very important to gaining money after we beat the game. Gaining money is actually very, very important to us. We're going to need a lot of money later on. And I say this, we have 500,000 gil on us right now. I'm going to need maybe 100 times that. So Riku is going to be incredibly important to us. Unfortunately, these are not the only weapons we're going to need. I need to make an entirely new, at least 1 set of weapons that will be used. There's Wakka's World Champion. And this weapon is going to make Wakka an absolute powerhouse. Okay, so as much as I hate to say it, given exactly how long Blitzball took, I think I may have to stop the stream here just to kind of get some rest in. And then I have now done everything I need to do. Like, everything is done. So, yeah, there's Riku's weapon. For some reason, she carries hers. Everybody else, it floats. So, I think what we're going to do is we're going to stop here, and then Saturday will be the end of the game stream. So the next stream will be Saturday. Okay, I can't do Lulu's because I don't have any further items. World Champion, Khalid Bolg. God Hand. Nirvana. I wanted to do it tonight. I really did. But I don't have the energy for another 5 hours. And I think that's what we're probably talking about. All told is going to be another 4 to 5 hours. Maybe less. Maybe 3 hours. But, it is now 10 p.m., and I started work at 8 o'clock in the morning. But, as I said, there are no other things to do, at least for before I go and beat the game. So Saturday, as soon as I start up, we're going. The technicians for my internet are coming at between 1 and 3 o'clock my time. It is, give you a comparison, it's currently 10 o'clock. They're coming between 1 and 3 o'clock. So, the stream will probably start after that and just go until my D&D game starts. It's been fun talking to you too. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.